Okay, folks, we'll start in just a minute. Yeah. Looks like folks are checking in. Okay, we're at about half of the registrations. It is 1 p.m. We don't like to keep folks waiting more than we need to, so we're going to get started. My name is Kathy Kokas. I am Business Development Director with Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. Joining me is my colleague, Teresa Mangrum. I'll let her say hello.
Hello.
Well,
Welcome.
and whatever else you want.
Welcome. Been getting a lot of your questions, and hopefully we answer a lot of them today. But if you have some that we don't hit with this presentation, be sure to type them into the chat bar, and we will be watching for those.
So let's get started. This is about the latest in a series of grants funded by the CARES Act. This money is being administered by KEDA, and it is provided by Washington State Department of Commerce. First, we're just going to do a quick update on some of the other CARES funded small business grants underway now in Kitsap County. City of Bremerton, that application period has closed, and we are in the process of reviewing the applications. If you applied for this or one of the others, it's highly likely you will get an email from me saying, I need things like a signed W-9, a copy of your lease, more details on this program, etc. So if you get one of those, don't feel like you've been singled out. I have been doing that for like the last couple of weeks. And it's just to make sure that we have as much information as possible to send forward to the jurisdictions. County has closed, and we are reviewing those applications as well. We do understand that the commissioners are reviewing phase 4. We understand it will likely come with some broader eligibility criteria, namely in the number of employees that are minimum and maximum. And of course, we will notify you of those as soon as we get the information on our social media, our website, and the specialized website, kitsapcaresmallbiz.com.
I'm going to pipe in here that we expect that they will also take away the paycheck protection programs and idle grants as being a barrier. It sounds like they will allow you to have received those, been benefited from those programs, and still apply for this program.
And then Port Orchard, same thing. We do anticipate their checks being printed and sent to you soon. I did just hear from the county that they hope to have their final review ready for phase 1 and to get those checks out the door as soon as possible. So that's what we know on the current programs. I do see a question in chat. Can businesses in Mason County apply? Unfortunately, no. This is just for Kitsap County. Shauna, I would encourage you to contact the Mason County EDC, as they should have funds from the state as we do. And I unfortunately do not know the status of their program. So please contact Mason County EDC if you're in Mason County. So again, if you have applied but you don't know what your status is, just apply for anything you're eligible for. You're only going to get one award, and we're tracking all of those. So don't worry about, getting yourself in trouble accidentally. So apply, because they're all very similar information that the applications, so it shouldn't, hopefully, if you kept the information from the first one, you'll have it for all of them. The application example does not show nonprofits. Are Visit Kitsap and Chambers still eligible to apply? So that is a separate application, Brenda, and we'll be sending that to the chambers when nearing the portal time. We can probably do a special webinar or Zoom meeting just for that. And that is part of the state program. The county does allow nonprofits, 501c3s to apply on their program. So we're calling the money from the state KEDA Cares because it's very confusing, at least for us, to keep all these in our heads straight. And we're really hoping to help those companies that were not eligible under the other CARES programs. So here's the overview. $245,000 of federal CARES funding are coming through Washington State Department of Commerce to KEDA for Kitsap County small businesses. You can receive, if you're successful, up to $5,000 based on eligible COVID-19 impacts. That is the key to all things CARES grant related. We have created a broader eligibility criteria, and we have until November 15th of this year to finalize the program, which is a bit more time than the jurisdictions were given by the state. So how is it different from the other programs that we have been administering? Businesses with up to 20 employees, full-time equivalent. So if you have 30 employees, but many of them are part-time, you'll see later on that there are calculations for you to determine whether you still fall under the 20. So proprietors and home-based businesses are allowed under this program. Home-based businesses were not allowed under the current city, county programs because it was reimbursement only, so it had to be a commercial lease. You will not have to submit receipts, and we are just as happy about that as you are because of the time it takes to upload them and double check them. However, this is super, super important. Cannot emphasize it enough. We will be looking for a detailed description of how you're going to use these funds to help your business through the COVID crisis. This is where less is more is not accurate. More is more. And then if you did get an EIDL loan or grant or PPP, that does not disqualify you from the application and program, but priority will be given to those who did not get any funding. And you'll see on the application that there is a place to state, I did not receive any grants or loans. And if you did get 5,000 or less from the very first program we administered in, was that April? Seems like a lifetime ago, from the Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grant Program, you would also be eligible. So I know there were some companies that were awarded like 4,800 or maybe less than that based on their receipts. You would be eligible for this program. To be eligible, you must be a for-profit business. You have to have an active business license, and you must have a physical business address in Kitsap as of March 1st, 2019. So we're saying you had to have been in business for a year when all the COVID crisis stuff really started to hit us in March 2020. No more than 20 employees, FTE, not including the owner, as of January 15th of this year. And we're defining FTE as 32 to 40 hours or full-time salaried. You must be in compliance with the governor's Safe Start guidelines, and that is to ensure that everyone applying is on the same playing field. And it is limited to one owner of business or franchise holders. So you may have multiple offices in Kitsap County, but for instance, you've been awarded $5,000 under the Port Orchard grant, you cannot receive another grant. We want this money to go to as many businesses as possible. You do have to show us a loss of income due to COVID-19 and or all the related orders regarding closings or restricted business. So to do that, we're going to ask for your gross revenue from quarter 2 2019 and quarter 2 2020. So if that difference is, sometimes it's like 1,600, sometimes it's 800,000. Regardless, we have to see an impact. If you made more in Q2 2020 than Q2 2019, unfortunately, this is not a grant program that you would be eligible for. You can also not exceed 1.5 million in gross revenues per year because we are focused on the small businesses in our community. Again, if you got a PPP loan, an EIDL loan, or the EIDL grant, it's okay, but no double dipping. So what does that mean? Double dipping means that you used one of these funding sources to pay rent, and you paid the rent for May and June. That means you cannot then request this money to pay rent for May and June, because the federal government would view that as double dipping, and that is not allowed for any federal program. It's not just this. We play that game all the time as we have a federal funded program called PTAC, and we have to make sure that we're not using those funds for any other things that would apply. Teresa, are you checking questions to see if there's any that we can answer as we're going along that are relevant?
Yeah. So I've been catching some of them asking for clarification on nonprofits, and my response was that they are not eligible with the exception of the chambers and Visit Kitsap, as we mentioned earlier, under this program. But I think Commerce said that they would be doing potentially a different package for nonprofits.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything in a bit about that,
Yeah,
though. So we probably need to follow up.
Yeah, and you should check with Kitsap Community Foundation because they may have information that we don't, since they focus on nonprofits. What else? Business opened August 29th. I'm sorry. Well, yes, this information will be shared. The recording will be posted, and this PowerPoint will also be posted. And there is a detailed program overview and sample application available on the website. I think that's and a confirmation that sole proprietors are eligible, and if you don't have any other employees, that is okay.
Okay, and I see someone has their hand up. Michael?
Is it Brad?
No, I thought it was Michael. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Michael Evans?
Okay.
Michael, did
I show Michael is unmuted, so you can go ahead, Michael.
Okay, we'll see if maybe he had to go get some more coffee.
Okay, and you can type it in. Question, what if your gross revenue exceeded 1.5 million in 2019, but will not come close to that in 2020 due to COVID-19?
That's the rule we have, is we have to go by 2019 to show the impact. And whether you qualify. We can ask that question of Commerce and get back to you. And then someone's asking if the revenue is only slightly decreased, would that potentially qualify? Yes, but that is the amount that you would be eligible for reimbursement.
Yes. And it must be at least 2,500.
So bit more detail on what we're looking for. So statement of impact, describe how you have been impacted. This is really when you can tell your story about what's happened. You know, you were forced to close. You could only be opened for, pickup. You all know your stories better than we do. And we're relying on you to tell those stories, to give us as much information as possible. Identify other relief funds received and how they were used. This is equally important. Going back to when we were talking about PPP or EIDL, it's okay if you got that, but please tell us that you used it to pay wages for, May and June, or that you used it to buy PPE supplies. It doesn't matter what you used it for. What matters is that you identify it and that you're not requesting the funds for the same use. How will you use the funds? This is also important. It can be any cost incurred between March of this year through November 15th. They have to be based on COVID impact. Whether it's rent that you had to pay and you weren't able to be open, it could be that you had to suddenly buy all this plexiglass and, hand sanitizer by the gallon, whatever it was, just be detailed in what you're telling us that you're seeking the funding for. Okay, so we have to know that you are not double dipping again. You're going to hear us say this over and over. You cannot get this fund to pay for something already paid with other federal funding. This is a big no-no in the federal funding world. And if it comes to light, we're not going to go looking. If it just comes to light, then your funding is at risk and future funding for your business, because the state is going to has to guarantee that you are not already on a do not work with list. It's called debarment on the federal level, and you don't want to be on that list for the future. So please pay close attention to what you're planning to use this funding for. And if necessary, we will ask for documentation of things, but it's not going to be required in an upload in the initial application. This is also super important for you, and anyone that has worked with any kind of grant or federal funding will not be unfamiliar with this. You will be required to maintain the records and receipts under this grant for 6 years. So, PDF them and put them in the cloud, have a special file folder. Just make sure that if for some reason your grant comes up in some type of audit, you can access it. That's really, really important, because if you aren't, you could be asked to pay it back at that point as well. So there's going to be these questions, and these are required by the funder, not KEDA, that you're going to have to answer yes to all these questions. If you are not able to truthfully answer yes, then you are not eligible for this grant. Is this expense related to the COVID-19 emergency? Was it necessary to continue business operations? You must confirm that this expense is not filling a shortfall in any government owed payments like taxes, licenses, or any type of government fee. You are also attesting that this has not been funded by any other funder, whether private, state, or federal. Oh, so sorry. Got a little carried away. And you would not be seeking this grant if you had not been impacted negatively by COVID-19. So this PowerPoint will be available either later today or tomorrow morning. This is a hyperlink to download the program overview and sample questionnaire, which is what you're seeing here. So we are doing everything to make sure you are prepped so that when the portal opens on the 21st, you will have everything ready to go. It is not first come, first served. It will be evaluated by a small team, and it does. We're working on that team. It will not be just KEDA that evaluates it. This is the information you need to have. Your Washington State UBI, your unique business identifier, your completed and signed IRS W-9 form. Please, if you want to give me a little bit of joy, please have your signed form. I would estimate at least 50% of the W-9 forms uploaded in the previous applications were not signed. And then I'm creating more work for you because I have to have you download it and sign it. So just sign it and upload it. Make sure you know what your gross revenue is and that you cannot exceed 1.5. Be truthful. And then compare your Q2 2019 and 2020 gross revenues. That difference is must be not an increase. It must be a decrease for you to be eligible. And it must be at least 2,500 for you to be eligible for this program. I'm going to ask you what your business structure is, and you'll see home-based is now part of this. Oh, Teresa, we need to take that off. Nonprofit 501c3 are not eligible for this one. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't catch that when I was reviewing. What date your business opened in Kitsap, how many employees you have, and as I noted earlier, this is how you can calculate how many of your part-time employees would translate to full-time. So do your homework. We just want you to be ready so that it's not a tedious exercise for you when the portal opens. It's open because it's online. You can go do it, whenever, once it opens. So make sure you have your UBI, know your business structure, what date you open, those gross revenue numbers, how many employees that are translated into full-time equivalents. And we're also want to know how many jobs may be lost if you aren't able to move forward. Download and sign a completed IRS W-9 form. This is kind of like my little pet peeve, so I apologize if I've said it way too many times. Review the sample application and get ready with the responses. These are super, super important. Please spend some time on talking about the impact and how your funds will be used. Make sure that you can respond yes to any of these self-certification questions. And if you did get other funding, just be prepared to tell us how it was used so that we can confirm that it's not duplicating what other federal CARES funding paid for. The portal opens September 21st at 8 a.m. and then ends September 30th at noon. And the link to the portal is on kitsapcaresmallbiz.com/KEDA. So in summary, we want you to download and review that program overview and application, do your homework, tell your story. They will be reviewed for eligibility and evaluated by a committee, and we must have all the funds distributed by November 15th to meet the deadline set by the state. And then just once again, we are anticipating a Kitsap County Phase 4, which will have a slightly different look than it did in phases 1 through 3, but I don't believe it will be as it'll still be rent, reimbursement, and maybe 1 or 2 other things. So just watch for details on that. This county is still reviewing what they want to do.
Yeah, and just a comment on the county, their criteria will be different than the one that we just reviewed for this program, but it will be much broader than it was previously. And I just want to emphasize that because the county has a lot more money to disperse than we do. And so I think we have, I'm trying to remember, 45, 46 grants through this KEDA Cares that we're going to be able to fund if they're all 5,000. Some will probably be less, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood, and the county has a lot more funds to distribute. So, and it's going to be interesting because they're going to overlap probably, like a lot of this has. So that's why we say apply for everything that you qualify for. So after we get all your applications in for this one, it's going to take us some time to review and make decisions, you know, the committees. So so don't be discouraged, but do cover your bases.
Yeah, cover your bases. So yes, someone's saying if a business is receiving a county CARES grant or Bremerton or Port Orchard grant, they can't receive this one. Correct. Just looking to see if there's any.
So E.B. Andrews has a question. Do jobs lost include number of contractors we've not been able to continue with?
That would be in your story. Tell us how it's impacted you. That would be a really important point to make. We weren't able to do business because.
Yeah. And I know Kathy hit this pretty hard, but I just want to reemphasize the fact that your narrative, the stories that you use, your written answers to those questions about impact and how your money was for EIDL and PPP were used and what you would use this money for are critical, because we're not asking for receipts. Those are going to be the only things that we use to assess whether or not you're eligible and a good fit for this program. And then the other thing is, we really want to, and the reason that the state broadened the criteria like they did is because we really want to get some of those applicants who have not been eligible under any other program. And that includes home-based businesses, some sole proprietors. There are folks that just have simply not qualified for anything else. And we're hoping to scoop some of those folks up and get them funded through this program.
Yeah, it's really about you. And as I said before, you know your story best. And, you know, I can't fathom, you know, what the impact is from business to business, but I know you know your story and how to best state the impact and, you know, what you've not been able to do because of COVID. That really is the bottom line. What have you not been able to do because of COVID? Whether you couldn't be open, whether you couldn't work with the companies you typically work with because they weren't able to operate. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons. Or you had to, you know, retrofit an office to be able to have business and clients come in. I mean, it's pretty broad, as we said. We didn't put down a list of things that qualify. Instead, it's broad to say what happened with COVID and what did you have to do or not do. Any other questions?
I didn't see any others.
Because you responded to the one about does it have to be COVID related, correct?
Yes. And
Yeah,
if anybody has a question, feel free to pipe up. You can unmute. I think you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Yeah, or just, raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you. And again, this will be posted. The best website to get everything about every program is the kitsapcaresmallbiz.com. It's a website Teresa created just for all these programs to kind of keep it all tight and together. Please call us. If you know someone who perhaps English is not their first language, we are partnering with some folks to help with some questions and assistance there. We will have the application in Spanish for sure. We're working on some other translations as well. So if you know of some businesses that could benefit from that type of assistance, please, pass the info on or to organizations that would be able to assist them.
Yeah, and you can let us know if you'd like the application rendered in a different language. There are quite a number of options, but we don't know which ones are needed. So, ask.
Because again, this is really for the people who maybe didn't qualify for the other programs, or maybe they didn't know. Many of you probably got an email from Teresa this week saying, hey, I'm just making sure this is happening. And hopefully you'll share the word with your friends in business, because we're all in this together, and hopefully we all make it through together.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I see no hands raised.
So there was a follow-up question from Evie. We have contracts canceled and some postponed. The postponed may never happen or may happen later, but they are still considered lost for the eligibility period, right? We do not qualify as we contract, but have no, we did not qualify as we contract, but have no eligible employees. I'm not sure if I understand the question totally.
So EB, where is EB? Let's
see if you're still there and we can unmute you.
Okay, EB.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. Well, my question is that we had contracts on the books for that period, but because of COVID, the people we were contracting with canceled or postponed. So for instance, a couple of them have like a deposit, which is, kind of it's symbolic more than anything, but a deposit that held those dates for them. And they called us back and said that, they had to close, or they couldn't have us come out and do the training that they wanted because of COVID. And so several of our contracts, although they may happen later once these businesses open, for us, they were lost revenue for the quarter. That is considered just for that quarter, right? So, I mean, even though they were on the books but didn't happen, and may happen later, we may recoup that business, it's still a loss for the quarter.
Yeah, I would say it's a loss. I mean, you didn't get the work. So, yeah, just convey that as succinctly as you can in your story.
Yeah, we were set up to really improve on our revenue this year, and then COVID happened. Like, we were set up to really start to improve our business. It's so frustrating.
Are you still able to demonstrate the loss in your Q2 2019 to Q2 2020?
I haven't looked at that
Okay,
since we've just been talking, and I will do that.
that is important.
It was a significant loss for us this year. However, I have to look at last year. I think it will show a loss, but
Yeah, nobody wants to penalize you for for having your business recover later on.
right.
Yeah. So if from the way you describe it, it sounds like it's an impact that's related to COVID, and that's the key.
Oh, it was totally COVID.
Yeah, and the future work is not guaranteed. I mean,
No,
they may
it's
have
not.
said, right? So, I mean, it's not our business if you get it later.
Okay.
That's how I see it. I'll, hopefully no lightning is striking or anything.
Right,
but,
right.
yeah, I think if what we just need to know is that you were negatively impacted by COVID, and those Q2 comparisons show us what the monetary impact is. And in your story, you might say we had to let go of 5 people, or
Well, the thing is,
had,
we didn't qualify for anything else because we have no employees, and you had to have at least 2 employees.
Right. Yeah.
We do not have employees, but we do have contractors that we contract with to do media for us or whatever that we need at the time. And so, oh, yes, my Q2 was definitely very much impacted, so I can definitely show that.
Good.
So, but in any case, we have not been able to continue with our contractors, the contract people that do these little pieces of work for us that we are not capable of doing. I don't do video. So, but they have also had a significant loss of income because we have not been able to continue our contracting with them.
Exactly. And
they're not really employees, though. They don't qualify.
No, I get it. Yeah, a lot of people do things that way. And I'm guessing we have some folks on the call that are some of those contractors that do things for folks as subs. So, that's part of your story, that your inability to do work also impacted the folks you typically contract with to do work.
Yes.
So, it's that whole domino effect.
Yeah, I feel really bad too because we were on such a trajectory.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, somebody asked a question about their 2019 revenues exceeding 1.5, and so I had emailed our wonderful contact at Commerce, and she said, based on your question, I do not see any issues with their eligibility. It appears there is a financial impact to them relative to COVID. As long as you're under the 20 employees, do you meet the other parameters? And okay, yeah. So
is that person still on the line?
We'll flesh this out a little bit more with them, but who asked that question?
I don't know.
Julie, are you still on the call? Let's see. She is. Okay.
She is. So she's heard the answer. So Julie, if you want to follow up with us, just email us or call us. Oh, Julie unmuted. So Julie, did you want?
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I heard the answer, so thank you.
Good.
You're welcome.
Good. All right. So need to clarify. I'm going to just tell you that because there have been so many grants, we, that may have been criteria from an earlier one that when I copied and pasted didn't get clarified on this one. So it sounds like I need to double check that. But based on the response from Commerce, it does not sound like exceeding 1.5 in revenue is an issue. So yay, good.
Yeah. So if you could see inside our heads, you would see
It's
that
scary.
we don't know what day it is. We don't know which CARES program does what. I actually have a cheat sheet that Teresa prepared that tells me at a glance what the basic criteria are, because I cannot keep it straight in my head. So we don't expect you to, which is why we have kitsapcaresmallbiz.com to help you figure it out.
Yeah, and also just huge gratitude from us to our partners at the Department of Commerce, because they are, I'm sure, going crazy too, but they have been so helpful and accommodating and generous with their time in clarifying all of our questions from all of the organizations across the state, just like ours. So maybe send up a silent thank you to Department of Commerce.
Yeah, and for the other grant programs, I would say that, the cities and the county have been equally great in working with us and following up with us.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
Okay, so, all right, I think we're gonna close. I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you again for taking time today. And again, this will be posted on the website with the PowerPoint. You have our contact info to email us. That's typically the best way. And have a great day, and we wish you the best of luck. Thanks.